Greetings, everyone. I'm Mar. Once again, this is my opinion. As you tell from the title up there, I'm continuing my trek through the episodes of Everybody Loves Raymond, one episode at a time. We're now on Season 8, Episode 3. This is Home from School. Another episode I saw for the first time in first run. And this whole first disc, I think I mentioned already, is going to be that way. This is going to be one where Ray has a little bit of a bonding moment with one of the twins. I mentioned that as the child actors are getting older, they can now start to focus a little bit more on them. I mean, from the beginning, Allie's actress was of age to where they could kind of put her in to the plots either as a figure that drives it forward or start to have some of her issues. Now, as the twins are getting older, they're starting to throw that a little bit. We've seen it a couple times before, but it's like been sparingly. Now here we're getting it even more with these last couple seasons, and this one involves an issue that as a kid I definitely got the child portion of with Michael. Now as an adult, even though I don't have kids yet, I definitely get the Ray side of things a little bit more. Of course, this episode, as the title entails, involves Michael staying home from school. Now, it's one of those things where you stay home from school a couple days saying you're sick, and after a couple days, the parents don't believe you as much because there's no obvious symptoms, especially with Michael, where he keeps changing his system. My stomach, my head, where it's like, oh yeah. Especially when Ray gets into it, it's like, I know this technique, I invented it. You're not gonna get all this past me. Well, Ray does try to help, and he tries to do the whole thing where he pulls Michael out of the bed and be like, all right, you want to see how fun you look? We're going to see how it looks when we put you in front of your friends. Doesn't work. And he has to stay home another day with Michael. Now things are not really going good because Michael, since he has to keep an eye on him and is trying to really put down the boot, as it were, Michael inadvertently sabotages Ray's workday, where Ray's trying to interview Britt Steinbrenner. And while he's doing that, trying to ask the questions, Michael is trying to eat sugary stuff for breakfast, and Ray's doing the usual, I will tell you when you're going to eat. Like with the donuts. No donuts for you! And he takes one. It's a simple gag, but it writes itself instead of taking the box. But he's trying to bounce back and forth between the interview and then parenting. When a simple thing would have been just to take the food and all that and be like, hold 1 second. When I'm done with the interview, then we will eat. No before that. Well, Ray continues his parenting, even tries to go with, you're going to eat Fiber 100. And then, of course, even taking Michael downstairs into his office study hall, as he calls it. That works a little bit, but not as much as he thinks it's going to work. And all this back and forth going between Michael and Ray does end in the heartfelt moment where Ray asks Michael what went on. Inadvertently, he asks. It's more like through their body language and all that. Michael comes clean with it. He's like, they were making fun of me. Like, why? Yeah, because I got up to talk to the teacher and accidentally called her mommy. Which, a line that Ray asks that later is repeated by Allie when Ray tells Deborah why Michael did not want to go to school. Just writes itself, but it is so funny. Why was the teacher yelling? Gotta love a good Deborah joke there. Like, no, but because of how everybody laughed at him, that's why he didn't want to go back to school. Because he did not want to go there. Which Ray does empathize with his son there, and then shares a similar story of something that happened to him when he was in Little League. He's up at bat. He drank a lot of water before he got up to bat, and when he was waiting in the end zone, waiting to go, he felt that he had to go, so he was trying to keep the cheer up, like, hey batter, hey batter, hey batter. He went, and he was hoping nobody would notice, and someone on his own team was like, look at Barone, and everybody that laughed at him. So Ray ran, and it was the talk of the school for a couple days, and he just didn't like it. Now, the interesting thing about this is not the first wetting your pants story that we've heard. I mean, there's a couple things. I mean, there's the whole thing about Robert having his bedwetting issue that turns out was not a bedwetting issue. It was Ray sabotaging him. But then there was another one that was mentioned in passing when Robert was in Little League and he wet himself up there. Now that was in a children's story. Now, it was never mentioned again after that, but it's interesting that both Barone brothers had something happen like that. Now, it could be they remember they mentioned it early on and just forgot which brother did it and didn't remember what episode it was and didn't bother to go back and be like, oh yeah, the fans do it. But it's interesting to note that both of them do that. Could happen, but more than likely it's probably something that they thought they were keeping in continuity that they weren't entirely, but it doesn't really break continuity. It's just an interesting little fact to throw in there. And of course, this whole thing is a nice little moment between them, and it does help fix Michael's little issue. And he even says when Deborah and the other two get back at the end of the day that, yeah, he's going to go to school tomorrow. And of course leads to Allie getting that zinger in about them. Now, while it is a tender moment between them, for the epilogue gag, Ray immediately resents telling Michael the story because of one little detail that he mentioned that I've left out so far. And that is that in addition to being made fun of, everyone that saw him wet his pants gave Raymond a nickname. Like he was telling Michael, usually when you're in baseball you want a good nickname like Hammer Hank, but instead he got PP Raymond. So in the epilogue, he's at the door and the twins come running in. He's like, hey, how was school today? Then from off camera, from the bus, we hear, hey, look, it's PP Raymond. Which, even though it's been 20 years, I remember the first time I saw this episode. I mean, I was laughing pretty well, but the moment that came in, I burst out laughing. What makes it is the delivery of the child voiceover that says that, plus Ray's reaction where he turns and he's like, what the fuck? And he's like, what? He's getting laughed at, and then you can tell in the back of his head, he's like, you told them the story, Michael? Oh my god. And then, of course, from our perspective, what adds to it is when it goes to the credits, it credits Ray initially as PP Raymond. And then to continue the joke, Phil Rosenthal is credited as Poo Poo Rosenthal. It's the perfect way to cap off this episode. And like Steve, at this point in the show, he knows how to write these characters. He knows these characters' histories. He knows how to write them. And the actors by this point definitely know the interaction, even the younger ones, such as the Sweden siblings. Mainly, it's Michael and Raymond in this episode. The other twin, and of course, Allie are there a little bit, and Deborah, a couple scenes she's there. Marie and Robert and Frank do get a little bit of show time here in between the times that Michael stays home from school. I mean, but now I presented the plot, it kind of made it seem like it was the same day, but it's two separate instances of Michael staying home after the original one. We got the one where Ray tries to make him go, and Deborah's the one that watches him. Then we get the second one, which is the main one we see. In between there is where we get the main little gag from Frank, the dirty sock alarm clock. Which is just like how it says. Go to the hamper, open up, get something stinky and dirty, and try to use it. Which Ray does try to use, but it's a gag where it's like, oh great, the one day she does laundry. It's a nice little moment. Not really much else to say. I mean, definitely a fun episode, definitely highlight here. It shows that even though I've mentioned that season 7 is definitely where the series starts to trail downwards a tad, it still does have some strong writing left in the tank. It's just like how much of that will continue, we'll find out. Because it seems like after this first disc, the episodes I remember seeing first run, it's sporadic. And like mainly in the middle and then the end after we get past this first disc. All in all, that's all I have to say about that. And next time we're going to have another Robert and Amy centered episode. Their 3-month anniversary. Oh, how lovey-dovey. Until then.